let's start by talking about the general, the ins and outs. Luckett, were you there? Were there any big surprise losses going out from the portal compared to when we did this transfer portal preview? Like, I don't know, what was it, 6 weeks ago?
Yeah. First things first. Excuse me, I'm a little hoarse from 4 days in Vegas. But like Nick, the number one thing for me was this is too long. Like, this is not a big deal today that it's closed. We don't need it to be 6, 7 weeks, however many. It's just a long time for a portal to be open. Second one, really, I think that there's two here. One's not in the portal. One's Carrington Valentine. He left. I think that was a surprise. And then Justin Rogers is the other surprise for me. Those two were the two. And then I think you could throw Kobe Albert in there, but that one makes a little more sense on the surface just because of the numbers in the safety position, and the guy that recruited him isn't here anymore. So I think that adds up a little bit. But those three, I think, would be the three that I was expecting to be here for spring football.
Kobe Albert ended up landing at Mississippi State, which feels like a great spot if you're a safety, right? 3-3-5 defense.
Yeah.
Can be versatile there, multiple positions. So I would not be shocked if he was starting when Kentucky goes to Starkville next fall, which maybe we can talk about that a little bit later because there was some significant news down in Starkville over the last week. But Justin Rogers ends up at Auburn. So you had two guys transfer out to other SEC programs, and that's noteworthy, right? Like, it just is, because I don't know if they'd both be starters or not. Rogers certainly would be. There was even a time where I thought Rogers might end up back at Kentucky. I also thought it's January 18th and Keontae Goodwin. Like, we don't know what he's doing. He was spotted at U of L, but like that's been so weird because he was such a highly sought after recruit, and he spends a year at Kentucky, doesn't do much. And I think if you're looking from afar, there was some confirmation for all the people their worst fears about Goodwin, right? Like, hasn't played much. We question his work ethic, all that sort of stuff, because he's not in the playing shape he needs to be in right now, while schools are pursuing or not pursuing him. We don't really know what the deal is. That was I'm more surprised, Luckett, that has not been a vocal transfer portal recruitment, because it was such a vocal high school recruitment.
Yeah, it's a little weird, right, that it's taken this long. You'd have to think at this point, Nick, he's, I guess, like, I don't know how the eligibility work for guys like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not going to be in school. I mean, he's going to enroll somewhere, I guess, but you pass the date. Man. You pass the date. Does he go to like JCC downtown for a semester? I'm not really sure.
Man, you're dating yourself calling it JCC too.
What's it called? What's it called now?
JCTC. They added the TC. It's technical college now,
okay.
Just not community college. Oh man, that's a great call, because like we're like the last people that called it JCC before it was JCTC. But you're right. Like there is just like a, I don't.
I remember Jared Stidham did that. He left Baylor, and then he went in like some community college in Texas for a semester before he went over to Auburn. So I just don't know how that process works for Keontae. It's been very weird. Florida was a name, I think, thrown out there. But yeah, I don't know where he's going to end up. We thought it would be Louisville. If it was going to be Louisville, why is it taking this long?
Right.
It's just a weird situation.
He could come back, but like he would have to be enrolled, right? Like, so it's very bizarre. And ideally, you would want him to come back, right? You would want him to figure it out. I've always thought Keontae was a good kid with a lot of potential. I'd like for him to figure it out, but I don't know. Like, he's not doing anything. So I don't know that. There's some others that aren't doing anything like it that don't necessarily surprise me, like Michael Drennan. Not,
yeah.
I mean, like I can see that. Yeah, like Rashawn Lewis is a 6-year walk-on. Like I could see why he's not playing football anymore. Michael Drennan, like I can see why they wouldn't be playing football anymore. Some of these guys I thought are some really good fits elsewhere. I mentioned Kobe Albert off the top, but like Chris Lewis, a guy who we liked a lot coming out of high school. getting reps at Troy and going up against corners that aren't going to just physically kind of get after you like SEC ones will, like he could have a ton of success there. I thought it was a little on the Smoke to Colorado. Like it doesn't surprise me that Smoke appreciated that allure, but I feel like he's already done that, right? Like would it be fun to be a part of this kind of Coach Prime experiment in year one? Yes. But I think it would be more fun to play for a 12-win team and rush for 1,000 yards at Troy. But you know what? Like, to each its own.
Right. Everyone has what they're looking for. I wasn't surprised Smoke ended up at a Power 5, though, just because look at the numbers.
Yeah.
He's got a bunch of rushing yards, experience. I get it. And so he's going to go out there and play, and we'll see how it goes for him. But, yeah, that was because it looked like he was potentially maybe going to Troy, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those were really his two spots.
That we know of, right?
Right. That he was at least publicly saying he visited. The flip side of the coin, prospects on the way in, like it when you look at the way that Kentucky handled the portal from filling holes, it feels like they kind of did everything, and with maybe two exceptions, and those exceptions I would almost rather than wait for. And,
what are your two exceptions there, Nick?
I would say you would want a right tackle to compete with Flax, and maybe even a swing tackle, right? Because you're not really. I'm not really sure on Buford and Flax, and those two guys you're going to have to rely on them to do a lot next year. Maybe one another tackle, but it's and the same applies with maybe another quarterback. It's like you can kind of figure it out this spring once Liam actually gets in there and gets to see the stuff up close and personal, because there is going to be another transfer portal window. There's going to be more guys. You can make people a priority, and especially when it comes to quarterbacks and potential backup quarterbacks, because you wrote on the site once like the kind of pedigree that you'd be looking for, right? Like some former 4-star that like spent 1 year at Purdue, like Walker Howard, who was at LSU for 1 year. Jane Daniels comes in, decides he's going to be there for 2 years. Nussmeier's, kind of head and shoulders past Howard right now. That sort of profile, a former top 200 player that is getting passed up. I feel like there's going to be more of those this spring, so it would feel natural to just wait until after the spring competitions unfold for you to go and find another potential.
Yeah, we're assuming, but we don't know for sure if that's what they want, I would assume that's what they want. But, we're going to have to see how that plays out. To me, kicker's one. They need a kicker.
Well, did they get some kickoff specialist walk-on or something? I feel like we got 1,000 kickers and none of them kicked the damn ball.
Yeah, so that's one. What are they doing at kicker? That's one of my big questions. And right tackle's obviously the obvious one.
Yeah.
I think when you look at needs, like they added two guys at cornerback in Jansen Dunn from Ohio State and J.Q. Hardaway from Cincinnati. Both have kind of intriguing traits like tall, length, athleticism, but they haven't really played at all. And there was a lot of proven corners that have playing experience that hit the portal, and they didn't go after. They went after these guys. So that's going to be, to me, looking looking ahead to November, does that work? Because you're going to need at least one of those guys to start, I think.
Yeah.
Along with Andrew Phillips. And so you're betting on traits there, but both those guys are young, so if you hit on them, you're going to have them for 3 years, 2 to 3 years, which will be a good thing. But that became a big, I think, issue after you lose Carrington Valentine, was addressing that. Number one was quarterback. They got their top target, which was a big deal.
But at corner, though, at both positions, I feel like they have a pretty, like I can trust them, right? With betting on long cornerbacks with traits. Because, you brought in and this was a different era, but Boss Man Fat, Lonnie Johnson.
It's not that different from getting Derek Beatty and Chris Westry ready to play as freshmen.
Yeah.
And they did that.
Yeah.
They've shown that they don't, it's an easier system to play corner in, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
but it's maybe not a system a lot of promising corners want to play in.
Sure.
Because it's not you're not getting put on an island a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot of zone coverage.
It's not the NFL tape that they want to show off. Right.
You got to come play and help support the run. And if you're playing towards one of the side of the field or the boundary, a lot of times you can be ignored.
Mm-hmm.
So the way they play, I think, it's a little harder to maybe recruit to that position. So like taking maybe like, because Hardaway's a true corner, but Dunn's like this tweener. Got recruited as a safety. Couldn't really find a home at Ohio State. They moved him around all different positions. Kentucky's going to try him out here at cornerback in their, cover 3 scheme and see if it works. But they've proven that they can make it work. Like Keidron Smith had a hard time at cornerback at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And he just had an outstanding year here.
Second team All SEC for the coaches.
And so they've found ways to make it work. Westry was a mid-3-star recruit, and he came in and started as a true freshman at SEC and looked good. They've been able to find ways to make this work, but I think it's clear they're getting back to that length and athleticism that they went away from for a little bit. They're getting back to that, and I think they're betting on it working. Like they're finding one of those guys to make works. But I think that's huge because they really do need one of those guys to be a player.
Yeah, and
I sound like a damn defensive coordinator over here.
You're Matt House on the mic. You mentioned Devin Leary getting your core, like that's of the utmost importance, right? And it also, I think even more so for me is we do a lot of hand wringing over nil and blah 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 blah, but like you're doing well enough to get your top guy in the portal, and you got him over another SEC program, revisited multiple schools. This was unlike you've been able to get transfer quarterbacks pretty much every other year since Stoops has been here, and they've all been quality players. They seem to get better and better each time around. And this time you were able to, weather the storm with some big dogs and go up against some of the big guys with big, deep pockets and win. I think that part of this is significant, right? Like, yes, the nil can always be better. But it was good enough to land Leary right now. And that it's exciting to look ahead to Liam Cohen's offense. We can talk about what the future quarterback means. But, we've spent a lot of time talking about Devin Leary, so we're not going to waste a ton today.
I do want to say on the O-line.
Right. Yeah, that was what I was going to get to.
Like, they addressed it here with Marcus Cox and Tanner Bowles. But like neither of those is a slam dunk or a proven. I shouldn't say proven commodity, but like you kind of know what you're getting with Leary. I feel like I know what I'm getting with Ray Davis, but I'm a little more iffy on like Marcus Cox and Tanner Bowles. Like, what are we exactly getting here? And they need at least one of those guys Cox to be a starting left tackle, and they need Bowles if he's not starting to be a guy that rotates in and plays a lot of snaps for them. And so what do they look like? Cox coming off an injury. Bowles has never really played at Alabama. Did he play because he wasn't good, or did he just get lost in the shuffle? I mean, we're going to find that out pretty soon. So those are two big ones, I think, because they need Bowles just for depth reasons, and they need Cox just to solidify that left tackle spot. And so that's going to be very important, I think, hitting on those evals, making sure they got those evals right and making sure those guys can help them.
We've reached the time of year where UK starts tweeting out pictures of workouts, right? And and I'm like, well, who's that guy?
That's what I had to do. I had to go on Instagram and like pull up and how they tag the names.
Yeah, it's like, oh well, Bowles is the big redhead. Can't get him confused. But especially Cox coming off injury, right? Leary as well. There's some uncertainty there. Whereas I at least feel like, I think my favorite part about Ray Davis is you know exactly what you're going to get, and it's a complimentary piece too, where you needed just a meat hammer, right, to just freaking get you, as Liam Cohen said in his introductory press conference, we're gonna line up on 3rd and 1, and we're gonna run for that yard. Damn it! I mean, that wasn't verbatim, but it was basically what he said. So getting that was huge. Luckett, we're gonna let's be boring bloggers here and do what KSR used to do in 2009. Let's assign grades. Are we gonna Kentucky's recruiting efforts in the transfer portal? How do we see it? Right? Overall, they're probably passing, but how do we think they fared?
I mean, I would say B to B plus. I think they addressed their needs,
especially quarterback hits.
Yeah,
right. Like, I mean,
I think they addressed their needs. They got the biggest fish that they could get, but I do think they made some swings here on some multi-year guys, Nick. We'll have to see how it pans out. Keyshawn Silver, Jansen Dunn, J.Q. Hardaway. I think they think these guys can be pretty good, but they are they're rolling the dice a little bit here on some of these guys. But I think for them, if you got on the truth serum, they would tell you it's not that much different than a high school kid because these guys got 3 years. Like Silver will be a redshirt sophomore, Dunn will be a redshirt sophomore, and J.Q. Hardaway will be a true sophomore. And then on the offensive line, I think they took maybe some bigger swings. You know, we thought maybe 3, they got 2. Cox is coming off a major season-ending injury, and Bowles didn't play at Alabama. I mean, and he's only got 2 years eligibility left. He'll be a redshirt senior this year, traditional redshirt senior, Tanner Bowles will. And so that's, like, I think they addressed the needs, but we got to see how it plays out.
Yeah, and I think for some of these multi-year guys, like, I'm going to treat it just like a high school kid, where if we look back 3 years from now and you lump in guys from last class like Zion Childress, Jordan Robinson, Dunn, Hardaway, let's lump in all of those guys together. You would like to see 70% of them hit. Like, you can't get them all to pan out. It should be higher in the portal than it is with high school recruits, right?
Yeah. Here's the thing with cornerback. They got 9 scholarship players in that room, Nick. Jansen Dunn, Jordan Robinson, J.Q. Hardaway, Elijah Reed, Andre Stewart, Nasir Addison, Avery Stewart, all added in the last 2 recruiting cycles. 7 guys. Like, if you're spending that much scholarship, I mean, 7% of the 85 is, like, 1 or 2 of these guys need to play. Like, you know, you can't be spending scholarships and players not playing. So I get why maybe they wanted to be done after a cornerback like that, because, man, we've really spent some capital on this position these last 2 cycles. We need to get our return on investment here.
Right.
And so that's big. They need some guys there to be able to play, whether it's maybe Avery Stewart or Addison could play as a true freshman. But you got to have someone there. I mean, because you've loaded up here on guys, and you got to, recruit and develop. Now it's time for the development part.
Whew.